That's why I flipped it.
Hello, everyone. You're getting some of the backstage banner here at Neighborhood News, Temperance, Michigan. I'm George Webb for Neighborhood News, and I want to welcome you all with my incomparable producer, Andy DeBala. Andy, how are you today?
Hey, guys. How's it going? Thanks for having me back, George. It feels good to be in the saddle again.
Yeah, it's great. You're looking good, Andy. And today's show is going to be on this blockbuster we talked about last night. We had a Super Sunday summary show. And why did we do a Super Summary Sunday show? Because YouTube, in their wisdom, eliminated 3 channels that we had built up. This is the 18th takedown that we've had. So we went to a new platform called Webinar Jam. We did 5 new seminars there with folks. And then we did summaries on YouTube for the folks on Saturday, and we did a Webinar Jam recap because a lot of people were dislodged last week. So you could catch up at a 60 times speed version, but still it was a summary. And then we did a YouTube. John O'Loughlin was kind enough to let us use his backup channel. We did a YouTube version of that last night. And all along the way, we kept presenting new news and so forth. That's breaking in the U.S. Congress. The U.S. Congress has published this, and Andy's going to bring up the report.
Sorry, I was pulling up where they can find all the videos.
That's fine. Let's do that first. Show them where they can see the videos. And if you go over to the first choice you have at neighborhoodnewsstudio.com, to the left is these older episodes, so you can see them all. There they all are. And then down a little bit, yeah, it's a pretty good smattering. It's under Research Roadshow is the title, and that's where the videos are. So you can see those old videos, and they're really great. The other thing was, and I would love to do more with knowledge base and tagging and annotation of the existing material out there, and that's all coming, so don't worry about that. But this story here, can they see this yet, Andy?
Yes.
Okay. This is August 2021, the U.S. Congress. Nobody's picked this story up yet. You haven't seen it on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, Forbes, Reuters, BuzzFeed, none of the big outlets. But this is from a little organization called the U.S. Congress. And it's about a little topic. Is it about fish off the coast of Namibia, the trading rights for some little bribery scheme for frozen salmon that are being genetically modified with interleukin 12? No. Andy, could you read me the title of that report?
The Origins of COVID-19, Investigation into the Wuhan Institute of Virology by the House Foreign Affairs Committee, report minority staff, lead Republican Michael T. McCaul, 117th Congress.
That sounds pretty much like the most important thing facing the world right now. That sounds like the most important story. What's the origin of this thing so we can prevent it? Is it Klaus Schwab coming in and hacking the database there in Wuhan and then having a simultaneous release of this coronavirus to try to start World War III between China and the United States? I don't know. It's important that we look into it, though, so Klaus Schwab can't do that. Do we want another 9/11 false flag and have another 20 years of increasing biosurveillance or surveillance because of a little yellow vial of yellow cake? Remember, that's how the last one started, a little vial of yellow cake with Colin Powell saying weapons of mass destruction. It was all started with a little vial of yellow cake, 20 years, $20 trillion, Blackwater being the top beneficiary. That's why we immediately go to Blackwater again when these types of things happen. Now, Andy, let's go to, now notice how they didn't have Fort Detrick in the list. Notice how it was just investigating Wuhan Institute of Virology, which again is sort of like an investigator saying, I'll start with only one suspect and look into only that one suspect. I can't look into any of the actual lab leaks. And if your investigator notebook, if you're playing at home and you have lab leaks as your investigation list, it only has one name and one name only, which is Fort Detrick. But having said that, Andy, go ahead and read that, would you please?
You want me to start from the very beginning?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Last September, the House Foreign Affairs Committee minority staff, under the direction of Ranking Member Michael T. McCaul, released a report on the origins of COVID-19 pandemic. Sorry. That report highlighted the possibility SARS-CoV-2 could have leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. However, as we continued our investigation and uncovered more information, we now believe it's time to completely dismiss the wet market as a source of the outbreak.
Stop the presses. It's time to completely dismiss the wet market as the source of the outbreak. Now, you've been around the last week. Do you remember ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, Reuters, New York Times, Washington Post, the Daily Mail, the Globe? Anybody? Do you remember anybody reporting this? That, hey, oh, by the way, Lee Harvey Fishmonger is a conspiracy theory thought up by guys like Peter Daszak. Did anybody come out and say all those people who pushed this for 18 months were conspiracy theorists? No. This is a minority report, but this is from the House of Foreign Affairs Committee in the U.S. Congress. Okay, Andy, continue. I'm sorry. That's the first big news. That should be stop the presses news. We're tearing down Times Square and building new bulletin board zipper readers because that's such huge news. Now go ahead.
Yeah, this isn't some podunk website.
This is the U.S. Congress. Yes. Go ahead.
We also believe the preponderance of the evidence proves a virus did leak from WIV and that it did so sometime before September 12th, 2019.
Okay. So what they're saying is there was one reporter out there saying it wasn't December 2019, as the WHO reported, and every one of those same media organizations reported. One and only one reporter in May of 2020 said it was the super spreader event was the Wuhan Games, and the breakout was before the super spreader event. Now continue to read.
Bullet point number 1, the sudden removal of WIV's virus. Oh, sorry, I forgot to read the top. This is based upon multiple pieces of evidence laid out in the report, including bullet point number 1, the sudden removal of WIV's virus and sample database in the middle of the night on September 12, 2019, without explanation.
And I have a potential explanation. Remember, I wrote a book called, Andy, you remember what it was called? It was called Corona 911.
And you can buy the banned book bundle now.
Yes, you can.
Corona 911, from DARPA to China.
It was the first book in the bundle, but way back when I wrote this over a year ago, it was called Corona 911, right? Corona 911 from DARPA to Wuhan. Now, what that said was, what if China had, from an external source, a 911 type event, just like we had a 911 type event that came from these Saudi pilots that was, seemed to be paid for by Kofor Black. So, you notice the date they use in this, Andy? September 12th. It had to be before September 12th, meaning
September 11th could have been the day.
Could have been the hacking day. So if you would have had, let's say you're in China and you're at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and somebody hacks into your database and is getting the actual genetic codes for all of your stuff you're working on. Okay. And you've already published out all the different things that you're working on your website. What would you do? And this is the same equivalent to watching the towers come down on for Americans to see what this feels like from Americans' point of view. It's like watching the towers fall. What's the first thing we did? We grounded all the airplanes. We said no more airplanes, okay? Until we can figure out what the hell is going on. We saw what happened with the second building. This is the Chinese going, hey, what the hell is going on here? We're certainly not going to put our definitions of what we're working on, because somebody could go out there with the 40 or 50 things we're working on. They could go, a terrorist could go CRISPR in a foreign cleavage site, create a bioweapon, and maybe they hit us with that. We don't want to certainly give them any more evidence or indication of what we're working on. If this Klaus Schwab type attack happened on September the 11th, okay? You notice how they don't rule out September the 11th here. You notice how I said it was Corona 911.
Isn't that what Anthrax 9/11 was about?
Anthrax 9/11 was about the 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
The same thing happening.
Yeah.
Corona 911 was fast forward 20 years ago, predicting that this year could have been the same as 20 years before, a 9/11 event for China. Okay, a 9/11 event for China. Okay, so
on to bullet point number 2. Safety concerns expressed by top PRC scientists in 2019 and unusually scheduled maintenance at the WIV.
Go back to the 9/11 analogy again. You see 2 buildings in rubble, and you see a third building, which is where they were doing the Enron investigation. Remember, they were using bioweapons every place that Enron was putting pipelines. Remember, the Department of Justice was doing an investigation. Remember, there was an investigation over at the Pentagon. Remember, there was an investigation on Capitol Hill. Did we have unusual scheduled maintenance there too? Would you have unusual scheduled maintenance with your servers to update the passwords after 9/11 and you got hacked?
Bullet points 1 and 2 are linked together, right? The removal stuff, and then they come in with maintenance.
Well,
clean it up, kind of.
Well, but I would definitely, if I would change the passwords on the air traffic controller server. I would change passwords on how you dial in and take control of an airplane for the automatic pilot, right? This is the same thing. I would expect after a 911 event that they would do some kind of remediation. Go ahead.
Bullet point number 3. Athletes at the Military World Games held in Wuhan in October 2019 who became sick with symptoms similar to COVID-19 both while in Wuhan and also shortly after returning to their home countries.
This is the U.S. Congress coming out and basically saying, buy George Webb's book. This is exactly what I said. This is exactly what I said. What they just said is exactly what I said in March of 2020. Thank you, U.S. Congress. I don't see as that anything other than exactly what I said. The super spreader event. You had it bubbling, but the super spreader event was the Wuhan Games.
They literally should have a picture of just Maciej Benassi. Like
they should have my picture. I'm the guy who said it was the super spreader event. It should be my picture. I took all the bullshit for this, so I should get the credit. Okay, go ahead.
After this report, CNN and Donnie O'Sullivan, if they win the
how could they?
Emmy,
it came true. Here's the U.S. Congress today saying I was right. Go ahead, keep going.
Satellite imagery of Wuhan in September and October 2019 that showed a significant uptick in the number of people at local hospitals surrounding the WIV's headquarters, coupled with an unusually high number of patients with symptoms similar to COVID-19.
Again, in the book, I talk about the Harvard study, and the U.S. Congress talks about the Harvard study. So again, you have to come with something that I haven't already reported on. So I don't have the Harvard the page that I cover the Harvard study here directly, but it's in get the banned book bundle. It's in there. We talked about the Harvard study, more cars in the parking lot and all the hospitals overflow with the parking. We talked about the number of people looking up diarrhea and cough and all the other symptoms and being dead tired on flat on their back and all that. We talked about all these symptoms. Again, kind of an endorsement of the GW reporting. Hate to say it. Continue.
The installation of a People's Liberations Army's bioweapons expert as the head of WIV's biosafety level 4 lab, possibly as early as late 2019, and actions, this is the last 2 bullet points being combined, actions by the Chinese Communist Party and scientists working at our affiliated with the WIV to hide or cover up the type of research being conducted there.
Okay, suppose take Anthrax 911, and I do believe Sina Bavaria was at the Fort Detrick at 9/11. Let's suppose we found Sina Bavaria was giving the 911 recipe out to Muhammad Atta. He's the Duisburg scholar there. He was over at the University of Delaware. Here's Sina Bavaria over here in Frederick, very short distance in between the 2-hour drive, right?
It's that Wang Yang Yi, the expert they were talking about, the bioweapons expert.
No, I don't think.
Because in that top where I just read, they put a people's bioweapons expert as the head of as the biosafety level 4 lab.
Well, you can go there if you
like.
And
if that's the guy,
Yuan Zimi.
Yeah,
it could be. It could be the secretary of the Chinese Communist Party committee. Okay. Yeah, it could be. Go back to the American 911 for a second. Okay. You go back to the American 911. Did DHS come out of this, which is a military construct placed on top of civilian law?
Look whose name is right there. Two of them, Daszak and Barrick.
Yeah, they're mentioned in the report. Yeah, and they don't mention the long association that Peter Daszak had putting different people into the lab. Okay, people visiting, coming and going from the University of Texas medical branch in Galveston being number one. They don't look at the University of Texas medical branch people that were coming in and out and helping set up the lab, right? They only look at one thing. Is it Wuhan Chinese people or not? And can we blame the CCP in this report? So it's a very one-eyed report. But having even said that, they end up doing like 3 sponsorships of 3 different George Webb books. I mean, they even come right on down and they couldn't bring themselves to say it happened on September 11th or earlier. So they said before September 12th. They couldn't even bring themselves to say September 11th or earlier. Again, why is this information classified? If this is to help the world, like the outbreak take where epidemiology started, take the cholera outbreak in England, doesn't everyone benefit by saying it's in the water? It's called bacteria. It's the Broad Street pump. It's carried in the water. This is how we end this scurrilous plague and keep many, many people from dying. Dr. Snow, what advantage is it for Dr. Snow to say, well, England needs this as a bioweapon. There's a lot of Frenchies around that we might want to get rid of at some point later on the track. So we're not going to put out actually the etiology of cholera. Yeah, there's some French in some areas here that we are not too comfortable with. Let's keep cholera around a while. There's no possible reason why you would want to keep this information secret. And the fact that this is a foreign affairs discussion means this is State Department classified information. This is State Department classified information. I'll repeat that one more time. This is State Department classified information. Go ahead. What you got there, Andy?
Oh, I'm just showing pictures from a report. This is the headquarters where they perform the gain of function research in Wuhan, in Wuchang.
Here's the number one reason why, when I did my reporting, that I didn't say that it was the Chinese and the leak from the lab. The 2 strains that were present in Wuhan at the time of this breakout, the super spreader breakout, weren't being worked on at the Wuhan lab. Now, I'm not saying that Zheng Li, the Batwoman, wasn't working with Peter Daszak over a 10-year period or longer. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they didn't have a working relationship for 10 years, but you're going to find the 2 strains that were present. I don't know if it was 2 different teams that brought it in or whatever, during the Wuhan games weren't from the Wuhan lab. Now, if I say, we have camels running all over the street and your zoo's responsible for letting the camels out here in Toledo, we have the best zoo. Andy, isn't it true that we have the best zoo in the world here in Toledo?
Yeah, it got voted number one.
Number one. So when you come to Toledo and you come to Hyannisport to the
It is a
north,
beautiful zoo. That was like I went there like 20 times a year.
can you
as a
imagine
kid.
me and you driving over there right now and saying, hey, you guys are responsible for all the pangolins all over the street in Toledo. And they would say, well, you know, George, I know you probably haven't been to the zoo recently. We have, you know, they got pandas over there. Andy, have you seen the pandas at the Toledo Zoo?
There used to be pandas. I'm not sure. If
Oh, they don't have the pandas anymore.
I'm not. I haven't been there in about 10 years.
See
So.
the bamboo. See, we're gonna sell them. The George is always
plenty
always
of
trying to
bamboo.
sell the god of bamboo. Remember they were out of bamboo for a while. Remember they were gonna all die. We have all this bamboo. We're ready to. Hey, WHO.
I think panda bears die because they're like really,
not enough fresh bamboo.
No, they're like really dumb. And they do like things that don't like they won't mate with each other and they fall out of trees and stuff like that.
Let's just leave it at this. Let's just leave it at this. If I was to go over to the Toledo Zoo right now and I would say, look, you know, the pangolins all that are all over the street that everybody's dying from is your fault. And they would say, you know, we have the pandas, but I apologize. We don't have pangolins here. We have a whole bunch of other stuff and we have the best zoo in the world, but we don't have the pangolins. That's why I didn't say it was the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It would be just as stupid as reporting that the pangolin pandemic was because it would be just like what Peter Daszak actually said, which is we originally blamed it on a pangolin, believe it or not, which is, you know, hardly any pangolins in Wuhan. I don't think there was any. But if I went over to Toledo Zoo right now and said, hey, you guys are responsible for the pangolins, they would say, we don't have any pangolins. That's exactly what the Wuhan Institute of Virology said. And there's no way in the world the foreign minister of China or the foreign ministry of China would say that we think that the U.S. athletes brought it if they didn't know that. This is the state department level group. They know if they have those strains of coronavirus in there or not. And they never would have said the Americans brought it if they knew that they had it. Now they could be lying, but I'm just saying when you're reporting, and I was in DC at the time, when you're in reporting in DC, you don't get to go in and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that the Chinese foreign minister is a communist agent. Therefore, he's a commie and you can't trust anything he says. He's the official spokesman for the foreign ministry. As a White House reporter, you got to go, Li Jianzhao.
Yeah, at the very least.
You got to do it. Foreign minister of the Ministry of China says the U.S. athletes brought the thing to Wuhan. Okay. Now, he might have known, and U.S. State Department appears now to have known through this classified information that the breakout was before then. Okay. But remember, folks, there's a second strain. So this first breakout could have been some other spray it in Dutch strain from Chengdu or wherever. We don't know where it's from yet. We haven't gotten the information. They haven't published it. I got to publish that book. I got to republish that book. It's so much good stuff in there.
We do got to get on spray it in Dutch.
Yeah. And then NATO Little Shop of Viruses, especially with this. Oh my God.
Okay, guys, in 2 days.
No,
maybe by the end of the night, we're going to.
No. Because people need to get the DARPA, none shall call it DARPA first.
My goal is to have all your books up there by the end of the.
Will you let me know when we sell 100? None shall call it DARPA.
We're like 30 short.
As soon as we get done
short, okay,
with None Shall Call It DARPA, then I'll do another book. Okay, I want to sell 100 at a time, just so I know if I get hit by a bus that my story's out there. And
well, I need to get your books out there in case
I want 100 copies, though. I want 100 copies out there, so it's not where they can send out the AOC team and round them all up easily. I want them to have to travel to every state at least to get the books. Okay. So, Andy.
So in this report, apparently, the Wuhan lab, dating back to like 2004, there was safety concerns at the lab. So the fact that they approved gain of function research and allowed this lab to continue to do that after they reapproved it, that's a concern.
No, the Wuhan Institute of Virology didn't exist in 2004. That was other PRC labs.
Okay. Yeah, you are right.
It wasn't built until 2009.
Yeah.
And guess who built it because we had safety concerns? Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Through the State Department.
Yeah.
Through Sanofi Aventis.
Every biosafety level 4 lab there's like a board of directors that's run out of the University of Texas Galveston that like trains all of the technicians, and they pretty much run the show.
And guess who else did the key input with the University of Texas medical branch from Galveston when they built the Wuhan lab? Who was the European person, technical person on that team? It was Virginia Benassi.
I was going to say Daszak or Benassi.
It was Virginia Benassi. Yeah. It was Virginia Benassi. So everything that the Congress is saying there is true. The PRC had leaky labs.
All these scientists right here they were
all true.
They were all trained at the University of Texas Galveston.
All true. Everything that they're saying in the report is all true. It was fixed by one Hillary Clinton, one U.S. State Department, one Sanofi Aventis at the express request of U.S. State Department and Hillary Clinton. And the team that went in was from the University of Texas Medical Branch Galveston, led by one Virginia Benassi. Look it up. That's the facts. That's a lot of Benassi for one story in Wuhan. The Benassi story doesn't start. You got to remember the reporter's perspective here. We're seeing, Carol brings forward the report on Sina Bavari writing what are going to be the next 5 viruses that hit the world in the blueprint. Ebola, Zika, coronavirus, anthrax, brucella. Mm-hmm. What are the 5 DARPA Desto viruses that Imran Awan is working on? Brucella, anthrax, Zika, Ebola, coronavirus for sure. I don't know. There might be one different, but she's also working on Virginia Benassi now. Again, I still say it's a fake name, a placeholder, but if somebody wants to bring forward Virginia, great. We'll interview her and we'll get all of her story. But then she's also working on the 5 vaccines. And she's also getting all the proposals for all 5 of those.
September 16th, they had a central air conditioning renovation project for $606 million at the lab. Do you think the Farsi trucking company?
What year?
This was in September 16th, 2019.
Yeah.
That's right after the date they said. So,
well, you see where the time frame is unclear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why would you pay $606 million to redo all your air conditioning system?
And they did $132 million air disinfected system in August 14th, 2019. And the security service procurement project was on September 12th. Maybe that's why they say before September 12th, because afterwards they tightened up a little bit.
Yeah. Just like September 11th. Think about it. Think about what your state of mind was on September the 12th. But what really gets me is the procurement of the environmental air disinfection system, because I'll bet anything on August 14th, 2019, it hasn't been installed yet.
Sorry, I thought
Ooh,
that was up on the screen.
because to me, it seems like the central air conditioning renovation project gets kicked in. Have you ever, I mean, can you imagine what $132 million worth of air conditioner equipment looks like?
Oh my, couldn't even imagine.
Right. And nobody puts it in until, you know, you schedule everything. I mean, come on, even doing your kit, we're trying to get a faucet around here. It's been a year. I've been here.
They're saying they got it
We
done
still
in a
can't-
month.
We can't get it done. I just wonder, this is a good question. Did they get that air conditioning system in? Because if they would have had an electrostatic, so the way these systems work, right, is a combination of mechanical, right, which is the membranes, and it's a series of membranes, and that's how they trap the molecules and so forth. Then they also have electrical charged electrostatic things, and by doing these things in series in such a way, this is the sophistication and the cost of these things, you can eliminate all these particles. Okay, sort of like scrubbers in pollution, right? Same idea. Get rid of the big molecules, then get rid of the small ones. You want the ones to go through that are only things that people are hopefully, well, I think they're getting their air supply from somewhere else. So you're not worried about O2 and CO2. That's a closed system through your suit. So you really should be a negative airflow out of here. You should be always ensuring a negative airflow, but you probably also want to make sure that you're detecting anything that's escaping, right? You want to make sure your filters trap anything. You got to have some in and out, intake and output. I don't know enough about that, but I'm looking at that August 14th, $132 million government. Did it get put in time or not? Hard to say. That's going to be hard to say. But again, I hate to say it, but haven't we been talking about air filters and Rayo Abbas and DARPA Dedesto systems? Haven't we been talking about that since the sprayer house? Literally, we've been talking about that for 4 years. How could they miss that? So, and that's DARPA Dedesto, folks. Andy, are you coming back? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. We got somebody prying open the door here. At least Zeke, we got Zeke the Wonder Dog to protect us, so that's good. So I find the whole central air conditioning renovation project totally understandable. After they
had $1 million hazardous waste treatment system renovation project in July 31st also. And a procurement for positive pressure protective clothing.
Well, that's not such a big amount of money, 170,000. That doesn't.
Oh, I did read that wrong.
No. I'm just saying $170,000 for protective clothing. I get that. They might have heard about, hey, there's a breakout in the Kanto region of Japan. Harry Harris seems to be sending Vindman vials, in his luggage. Wendy Rodriguez and Harry Harris, over there at the Tokyo airport.
They got maybe they should have invested more money in the animal research maintenance project.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't have a problem with $170,000 of protective wear. The waste treatment plant putting $1 million in the middle of July makes total sense to me because they're reading the newspaper. How many BSL labs are there in the world? 50? BSL 4 labs. And
that's what George Gao originally kind of said, was they found that there was coronavirus maybe in the wastewater.
Right.
That was one of his theories.
Right. So So
if they're doing a renovation,
but I'm just saying, remember the state of mind. They shut down Fort Detrick.
Yeah.
So if there's 50 labs in the world, you're running a lab, and the biggest, baddest one of them all shuts down because of wastewater problems, where somebody's flushing down all the effluent out the thing, and Rayo Abbas is sitting out there with a bucket. Right. You do an upgrade, make sure that you're catching all those filters when you're people have to go to the bathroom. So you're making sure you're catching anything that might be a bioweapon going out the wastewater system. To me, that makes sense. It's $1.5 million that they're spending. Where the honking, and if you go up, where the honking expenditures come in, go up the other way.
Oh,
Where the big honking expenditures come in.
Oh, I passed it.
Okay, are
Right there.
Are when they're all of a sudden saying, hey, wait a minute, there's something getting in our air. Something's coming into the air supply here. They've detected something.
Oh yeah, why would they do this unless it was something bad was happening?
These are $1 million expenditures, and all of a sudden we jump to 150 million. Right?
They must have noticed something in the previous.
Something's going on. Something's been detected. And they have these detectors all around, that sort of like fire alarm or ozone detectors or what are those? They have them in basements for the radon detectors. So, and hey, wise sniffer. I wonder if we could sell, Antoine Benassi might be there with the wise sniffer, right? I wonder if that is a procurement for wise sniffers.
That might be. It might be part of like the whole mask and all that. Like
no, that 150 million
level.
That 150 million. Let's see how much of that is wise sniffers, because Virginia Benassi would have knowledge of what part of the whole idea of penetration testing and then cyber defense, cyber attack is knowledge of the loopholes, knowledge of the exploits. If you have knowledge of the exploits, you know how to exploit it. Virginia Benassi would have had that knowledge. University of Texas would have had that knowledge. Now, is Virginia Benassi a real person or not? I don't know. I've only got one Photoshop version of Matt's face on a woman. Is that Virginia Benassi? I don't know. To me, it looks like Matt photoshopped on a woman. And the one thing, right? I think they're going to an awful lot of trouble to try to prove that she exists using Matt's face photoshopped on a woman. One picture, right? And that's given to us by a $1 trillion troll. So it could be that they're going through too much trouble to try to prove that Virginia Benassi exists, when in fact it's someone else using the identity of Virginia Benassi, right?
There's the lady that's the bioweapons expert for China. That was appointed the head of the biosafety level 4 lab.
Okay, and she's going to be the person that's Arsena Bavari. Okay. All right. Okay. I give them that. Putting a biodefense person in after it's a bunch of research and academics, and then you get a 911 attack. Okay. Put in a military person. I get that. Okay. That's fine. Notice what you don't have here is in this investigation. You don't have anybody saying, well, let's start with the lab leaks. Do we have any evidence whatsoever that there's a lab leak in this? No, just a bunch of circumstantial evidence that says, well, you put in an air filter system.
Committee minority staff have also received testimony from a former senior U.S. official that General Chen actually took control of the biosafety level 4 lab in late 2019, not in January 2020, as was publicly reported.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, at 9/11, if all of a sudden General Schwarzkopf or someone like that would have taken command of a joint command, a JTTF type command on September 12th, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't. I'd say, hey, you just hit us with something. See, I think, Andy, from the metadata here, it looks like the first one was detected. The first strain was detected sometime in August, and that triggered the $150 million. Okay. And to me, it looks like the second strain triggered hey, we're going to spend 5 times as much to completely renovate everything. Because remember, once a bioagent gets out, you can't ever assume where it ended up. Okay. And then once it's captured, you can multiply it in bacteria and create billions of them. So that's how terrorists do it. So now you got to get rid of everything. And again, who would have been the person to go in and recommend? And again, Thermo Fisher is going to be the one who gets the business. I can predict it already.
Here's the hospital traffic flow chart.
Everybody said I made this up. Everybody said I made it up. Now the U.S. Congress is publishing it. Unbelievable. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi. Thank you, Adam Schiff. Thank you, Peter Strzok. Wow. I've taken the bullshit for this, so I get to be the front guy in the parade for exposing it.
So here's a map of WIV headquarters, hospitals, MWG venues, and sick athletes. So I'm guessing the running people and the bicycles are all the sick athletes.
Jeez, I couldn't have done better myself. Andy, take a snapshot of that. Remember Donnie O'Sullivan? We'll go over their lawsuit in a minute. How preposterous and conspiratorial it was that the U.S. athletes brought the virus to Wuhan. And yet your own U.S. Congress produced a map of athletes down all over Wuhan. We know, let's do state of mind for a second. State of mind. The U.S. State Department, if this is happening on September the 11th, let's just take the latest possible date. Wuhan figures it out, the latest possible date. Okay. Are we saying the Chinese government deliberately, knowing that they have been hit twice with two different bioweapons, let's just read this out and say, okay, there's an August bioweapon, and then there's a maybe a safe strain and a lethal strain.
The athletes are saying that the city was a ghost town, like a city of 15 million people was a ghost town, and they were told it was to make it easier for the games. And this is a Canadian. I can read the quote from.
No, I think you're going to find in here is exactly what I've been saying all along.
Yeah, I'm just reading stuff to prove your point.
Yeah, I've been saying this for 18 months. And again, if I take the crap for this, then I'm going to be at the front of the parade taking the credit, because they're basically saying all the things I've been saying over the last 18 months. But the big idea here is there's a pivot point here on the September the 11th. The Chinese government gets the attack, maybe two different strains, right? Do they tell the Americans or don't they tell the Americans? Okay. And why is that important? You have all these different major athletic events coming to China. Okay. So the question in your mind, the largest sporting event ever, I think, with the NATO military games, or the Wuhan NATO military games, do you tell the Americans or don't you tell the Americans?
So Italy, Brazil, Sweden, and France were the four countries that reported COVID-19 flu-like symptoms of their athletes coming home.
Well, also Luxembourg team and the Dutch team had people sick too. But the reason why I say the Chinese may have given foreknowledge to the other competing countries is there were several teams that didn't come to the games, which is very unusual. The English didn't come to the games. If you look, I don't believe the Australians came to the games. I don't believe did the New Zealanders come to the games? I don't believe the Japanese came to the games. Why? Why, if you knew that, would you send the Americans to the games? Why, if you knew that, would you send the Canadians to the games? This is a month before the Wuhan games. Why would you send your athletes into harm's way? Now, what you might do is you may put out a call for help. Remember, we said this. The State Department, Maja Benassi's team could have been a response to a call for help for some new novel coronavirus agent. And then they would have had to muster a team of doctors like, oh, I don't know, Edward McDaniel and, you know, our top scientist, Daszak and whatnot. And they would have had to, you know, Koopman from, again, in the books. I got to get this book out, Andy. But we have to sell our last 30 of DARPA. The DARPA book's a great book. You should buy it.
It is a great book. Neighborhoodnewsstudio.com.
Neighborhoodnewsstudio.com. I wrote about it four different books.
It's a good looking book right there.
It's a gorgeous book. Oh my God, it's a good book. I get started looking at. Look at there's the ferrets.
I wonder who wrote it.
Yeah.
Oh, the ferret picture. I forgot about the
Faucier. The picture of Faucier. There's Zengli right there in the lab.
They're saying that man-made viruses and wild-type viruses are indistinguishable. And here's a graph or picture showing you that.
Each individual virus is indistinguishable. True. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like a QR code. Okay. How the pattern or the graph is filled in black and white is indistinguishable, how it was created. But the genetic drift from point A to point B is quite predictable and quite mathematically projectable. Okay. And if you start from a picture of me from 10 years ago to a picture of me now, that is a realistic transition over 10 years. And anybody looking at, even a child would go, well, that looks like that guy got older and he might have gained some weight. Right. Mm-hmm. But if I turn into Onokonos Lure and I look like, Maria Butina with torsion, where I turn into two people, torsion and Maria Butina over there at Erickson Living at Greenspring, then people go, wait a minute, that doesn't happen. A male doesn't transition to female unless, you're part of the, university system. Your people don't get younger. Benjamin Button, that's a fantasy movie, et cetera, et cetera. And the same rules apply in genetics. There's a certain amount of genetic mutations that happen logically over time. You don't all of a sudden end up with HIV. One NATO courier was driving down the street with their, valise for a NATO general, and another NATO courier was driving down the street with another valise from another NATO courier, and then they hit into each other, right? And then their vials from the top, NATO Supreme Commanders smashed together, and one's doesn't know they're carrying HIV, and the other doesn't know they're carrying coronavirus, and then slap, all of a sudden you got 5 HIV inserts into coronavirus.
This thing's literally like a George Webb book. We could just take this report and put George Webb make a new cover, put George Webb.
They took my book.
And it would be like literally
money.
A detailed report of your work.
They owe me money. Are they using my screenshots?
That's what I'm saying. I think they are.
I use that screenshot.
I'm pretty sure this is in one of our books.
That screenshots from the report?
This is in the report.
They're trying to undercut my book sales. Wow. Yes. These are all things I did 18 months ago. Wow. 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 Okay. If that isn't the thing that makes you run out and buy, none shall call it DARPA, I don't know what will. But anyway, the idea here is that there's predictable. You don't end up with influenza spikes, the hemagglutinin spikes, and you don't end up with the N spikes and neuraminidase spikes, and you don't end up with the glycoprotein 120 and 160 spikes. and the coronavirus spike, you don't end up with all 4 of those in one molecule over a weekend. But this, they would have you believe this in this report, and that's just not true. George Webb's not going to ever be Butina. No matter what happens between now and the end of my life, I'm not going to end up looking like Butina. But now that we mentioned Butina, it is rather interesting that Erickson Living, I think it could be a different Erickson, it could be Paul Erickson. Paul Erickson had all these living. It was Paul Erickson had a lot of old age homes as well. And now Joe, I think it's Joe Erickson, crashed Erickson Living and then ended up taking billions out and then making a foundation. So I'm not saying Joe Erickson and Paul Erickson are related, but it is interesting in that same year, Paul Erickson gets into the assisted living business and he's bringing in all these bioweapons girls from Russia because, you know, he's run guns on 4 different continents before the age of 30. Okay, including in the middle of Iran-Contra, right out there with Ollie North. He's running around with Jack Abramoff, making movies with Dolph Lundgren in the middle of Africa about communism, right? And all of a sudden he gets into assisted living centers. And Andy, I got to tell you, there was sometimes you just get a feeling when you're on the road doing a story, right? And I'm somewhere. Well, I just done a thing on the Novi Police Department, and Aaron had taken me. I was with the Kennedy Obama kids. I think I was with all 4 Kennedy Obama kids. All 4 kids of Aaron's looked like a combination of the Kennedy kids and the Obama kids. And I
don't know how he's gonna take that one.
Somehow they're good looking.
They are good looking kids.
They
got more Kennedy than Obama.
They have a lot of the Kennedy looks, but the coloration is the Obama coloration. So that's why I call them the Kennedy Obama kids. But I'm with the Kennedy Obama kids. And we go to the Novi Police Department where Paul Whelan was working, bringing in the Russian bioweapons girls, remember. We go to the Novi, out to the skating rink and talk about the guy from where, I can't remember, Latvia or wherever. And then he ends up dead. The goalie ends up dead. But then we go over to Novi to the trade center where we said, hey, there's funny things going on here, but this is where the bioweapons girls were always coming to do weapons shows with Paul Whelan. We went out to the airport where the Ypsilanti is, where they made the bombers. And I can't remember the name of the field right now. But we said Novi, and we went out to the Novi Oconus Lure pool where they all lived. And we went to the warehouses that they had in Novi. So we had like 7 or 8 touch points in Novi. And so I said, I just got to walk. I'm going to find it. I just got to walk. So I started south of Novi, further south down by the ice rink. I started at the ice rink, which isn't in Novi. It's a little to the south. But I said, I'm just going to walk between here and the convention center. Oh, by the way, they changed there's a water tower above this. It's a food convention. It's a food convention place. I said, oh my God, please don't tell me they're doing the testing the different bioweapons with the air filters, with the Oconus Lure girls. Please don't tell me with all the food that comes in and out of here. #1 food convention thing in the world. And they changed the thing from Novi. They changed the water tower to say Adept, the backbone, this new operating system. Anyway, I said, I got to walk this. I walk from where the guy died, the hockey player died, killed with fireworks. 4 different stories of how he dies with a firework. But anyway, the NHL kid dies. So I said, I'm going to, and we thought maybe that's how they're bringing the kids in and getting them in is through the hockey. Because you can get in girls and men through the hockey on sports scholarships. So I said, I'm going to just walk from here to the place where the air filter and the Adept water tower is. That's like a 9-mile walk. And it was so hot. And it was also after flooding. So it was so humid. And I got just like exhausted. And I sat down on this park bench at this place called Fox Chase. And I'm looking out over in Novi. There it is. See the Adept right there? See the Adept on the water tower? And I'm like, oh my God, I hope that this isn't the, where they're building the 10,000 gallon tanks in this thing. And I sat down at a place called Fox Chase. I just said, something doesn't feel right. And I look around, it's this retirement community, and it's run by this company called Erickson Living. I thought, oh my God, please don't connect those dots for me. Please don't connect those dots. And thank God Deep Troy came and picked me up, because I couldn't have made it all the way. I couldn't make it all the way. But yeah, there was this Fox Living in Novi. And I said, is that the same Paul Erickson? They're not doing the spray. They're not doing the spraying in the old age homes.
There's a lot of Fox runs around here.
Fox Living, Fox runs, but this one right here is in Novi, right? And they only have like 20 centers. It's not like they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, but they don't, it's like, oh my God, is this the front? The old age homes, are they testing on the seniors? Please, God.
That makes so much. I guess it does make sense that they, like, if you were gonna test, like, that would be the place.
If they die,
it's sickening.
If they die,
to think about that, because they, like, we have an old folks home right behind us, and like they don't allow them to leave. They like their schedules are controlled 24/7, and I'm assuming they all have like their own medical suppliers and such, and make money that way. And
they
it's
test
like
the drugs.
They could test literally anything in there. No one would really.
This is a criminal. He's currently in jail, folks. He's no way. He got pardoned by Trump, which is on the last day. Sorry, but he had done. And I had talked to people who've been defrauded for him doing pipeline investments. So what the hell is he doing with these old age homes if it isn't for this kind of dark weapons testing? Remember, this is a guy who deals with Jack Abramoff. I'm not making this up. Okay. And there was a lot of people, how is he also the person who represents Lorena Bobbitt if he's not deep state? Right. They wanted all men who felt like they got screwed in their divorce to send money to Paul Erickson. And he's not, I don't know how he ever made it through being a lawyer when he couldn't get through freshman English at the University of South Dakota. But I said, please, God, I was over there at Green Spring, Andy, and said, here's where we had a breakout. I said, please, God, don't let this be Erickson Living. Don't let this be Erickson Living. There's only 20 of these in the country. I almost collapsed. I almost literally collapsed at Fox Chase in Novi on 13 Mile. I remember that. I said, oh God, I'm going to die on 13 Mile. And then Deep Troy came and got me. I saw Deep Troy yesterday. I said, please, God, don't let it be Erickson Living. And then Connie Bevan, I didn't even follow up. I didn't even want to know. And then Connie Bevan sends me the message yesterday and said, did you know, look at my Twitter from this morning. Go all the way to the top this morning. Did you know? It hit me like a ton of mayonnaise this morning. Continue right
there.
No, maybe do my responses.
Okay.
Do my responses. Yeah, there's the Q response. Did they take it down? Looks like they took it down.
I don't see anything else from this morning.
Well, anyway, they must have said it was anti-Muslim because it was owned by this Muslim guy. And I just, maybe it was, oh no, here it is. It's the 6 hours ago. Go to my regular tweets, go to 6 hours ago. If the CB break did happen at Green Spring Living 6 hours ago, click me first.
I thought I had you.
6 hours ago.
This one? Nope.
Oh, you're getting, there it is. If the CB, yeah, there it is.
Okay. Sorry, you guys had to witness all that.
If this, that's okay. If the CV breakout did happen at Green Spring Living in Springfield, Virginia, we need to get the names of the 3 dead victims and the 54 hospitalized people to tag and trace. To me, they're the ones talking about tagging and tracing all the time. Why didn't we do tag and trace from the original breakout, right? Why didn't the CDC do this in June of 2019? And then it hit me. I found out that, yes, of the 20 different places Green Spring owns, it also owns this one. Erickson Living manages Green Spring. And it kind of gets mad at me because I don't have the 3 names. I tried to get in. You saw all the sirens and all those cars coming in when people found out I was trying to get in. I wanted to get in to interview and find out who the 3 people that were dead. But even more interesting, I don't know if you can see this, Andy.
Are you sharing your screen?
Well, you got it there. Rayo Abbas. There was another breakout in a place called Burke, Virginia, which is about 6 miles away. And that's not talked about as much, but it's called Heatherwood. And that's 2 outbreaks in Virginia. And Rayo was in they had a house in Springfield. The Iwans had a house in Springfield, and they had a house in Burke. They also had a house in Annandale, and they had a house in Alexandria as well. Again, I'm not trying to say anything bad here other than he's a guy whose father is
You want the one in Burke or the one in Springfield?
Heatherwood. You can just show Heatherwood.
Oh,
No, everybody's seen that one, but the Heatherwood's about 6 miles away. And if you look at where Lorton is, do Heatherwood and Green Spring, Heatherwood to Green Spring,
Sorry.
where
this pulled up.
where the other place that the Iwans had was Lorton, which was kind of in the bottom of the V of these 2 places, about 6 miles in each direction. So again, criminals are lazy too. They don't want to do it right in their backyard, which leads directly to them, but they typically commit crimes around their house. Here we got a guy who's somehow working at the U.S. Congress, gets kicked out of McDonald's because he's putting cameras in women's bathrooms. We're not dealing with the most ethical person, but his father has these terrorist connections to PAC ISI, which I find troubling. Why are we hiring somebody with PAC ISI connections?
16-minute drive from Heatherwood to Green.
It's quicker than that if you go the gray route on the if Rayo did a bicycle or whatever. Well, okay, fine, you can get there. It's close. I'm just saying I'm troubled when I see a whole bunch of metadata kind of aligning and nobody investigating this. Now, why didn't anybody come forward? I can't remember Rayo's company. I went to his house. I can't remember Rayo's HVAC company, but a whole bunch of people covered this. I wasn't the only one talking about Rayo's HVAC company. Again, I don't see how terrorists have time in their day to be a terrorist and also work in the U.S. Congress and also have an HVAC company if they're not related. They're not related. Okay. So we'll just leave that at that. Okay. So with the resounding, Andy, if you want to just go down my Twitter a little bit and I'll give people an update.
I was going to say, we have these slides. I don't know. Those are some of what you got into.
If
already.
you just, yeah. Okay. If you want to just, yeah. Okay.
I can go back to Twitter.
Either one. I think the other slides would be good, but it'd be better to people to see that these are out there and I'm not hiding anything. Chumar Kundra. I don't know who Chumar Kundra is, but he got involved in, or Chandra Kumar. I don't know who he is, Chandra Kumar, but he seemed to get involved in old age homes quite quickly.
Your slides are now on the screen.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to just cycle through these, go to this next one. I got a lot of people telling me, hey, wait a minute. You don't have the Harry Harris Vindman breakout in Japan. That was the first one, the Harry Harris Vindman breakouts, the blood samples going from, Seattle to the old age homes in Washington where Vindman was. Okay, the first breakout was January to March 2019. I looked at it, Kanto, Japan, which is, there's a whole region around, including Tokyo, which is, a lot of people, more than 30 million people, right, in the Kanto region. And they took 500 blood samples, okay, and only 2 people tested positive for the antibodies. Okay, I can't call that. I mean, yeah, it's
Not an outbreak, but
yeah, it's significant. I mean, it could be though that just Harry Harris and Wendy Rodriguez antibodies. If they gave blood at the local, diplomatic blood drive at the U.S. State Department, there's your 2 positive antibodies. I'm assuming that they would be, before they spray, that they would get an inoculation, and that could be just Harry Harris and Wendy Martinez.
You have Barcelona, Spain in March 2019.
And this is the sewage thing. And so there's a Barcelona, Spain BSL-4 lab. Okay. And this could be the Kelme thing. I don't know. How do you, Barcelona was where what was Juan's Valdez's, the guy who ran the Olympics, Juan Antonio Samaran. But he supposedly had the back channel with NATO to do all the performance testing. Juan Antonio Samaran. I've been to Barcelona. This whole thing.
And we got Benicio.
No, don't skip ahead. Do Juan Antonio Samarai, or whatever his name is, head of the IOC. He was the head of the International Olympic Committee, and he was a Knight of Malta, and he was a weirdo. He had this back channel deal with NATO, Samaranch. Do Juan Antonio Samaranch, and I'm not saying I've been to the NATO lab there. I haven't. But there was a weird, he was the president. Can they see this, Andy?
Yep.
He was the president of the IOC. Now look at, just do a control find on Malta. Oh, come on.
Maybe not in the Wikipedia.
Oh, come on. Do Samaranch. Samaranch is how you spell it. And Malta. Come on, he was one of the biggest ones there ever was. He was the one who got Reagan to get he was the one who got Reagan to get an honorary Knight of Malta.
He looks like he's from
do a knight. Search that for knight. Just say knight of. Just say and. You got to have the and. Got to have and in the quotes.
I know how to.
I know.
I just figured if it was that Juan prominent, I wouldn't.
You gotta misspell Juan. You got U and the A.
That might have been why.
But I mean, this is no secret that he was. And just do search for Samaranch. See Reagan getting his thing. Samaranch was the guy who invited him. Anyway, Kelme was his baby. Kelme uniforms was his baby, and the first big Kelme thing, athletic uniforms for the Olympics, was in Barcelona '92. Now, people may have somehow, if you anyway, it doesn't matter if, I'm not saying that Knights of Malta are bad. I'm just thinking, if you think that you are the knight of the Pope, and the Pope, somebody's whispered to the Pope through a dark screen and then has come out and told you what the Pope said, because you're not allowed to directly cloister with the Pope. I can't remember what they call a little private session between the Pope's advisor and the Pope. What do they call that little session? But you're not allowed to be, there's no privy council for the Pope. There's this, not a confessor, but there's some interregnum, interpopedom little conversation. And then Ratzinger is that guy. He comes out and tells you what the Pope said. So the Pope could say, I think the spring will be a time for growth. And then Ratzinger comes out and says, we need to spray in Libya. Don't ask me what. Right? So he's got a long-term background. Juan Antonio Samaranch and the Knight of Malta, they have this way of contorting what's said in the little purple curtain into we need to spray, right? This is going to be the Knight of Malta's thing, right? I'm not trying to bring the Knight of Malta in this thing as somehow it's proof. I'm just saying, isn't it interesting that the Kelme uniform comes out of Juan Antonio Samaranch, and Kelme is where the march it shows up in Barcelona at Kelme, right? That's all I'm saying. I don't think Kelme is directly. I thought Kelme was in Valencia, but the other place Kelme, the uniform is in North Carolina by Fort Bragg. Again, I just find that interesting that Kelme is leaving the final fabric design to a place right next to where our special forces are located. I don't know. It's worth looking into, because if Kelme does have a special affinity with how they design this uniform to graphene oxide, and then makes it super sticky, and then the coronavirus, which has already been proven to stick to that 100 times with 100 times more affinity, that's going to make people who are wearing that uniform much more susceptible to coronavirus, whether or not it's planned or not. If graphene oxide is just being used to keep the clothes clean, which it is in the dry cleaning business, Dave Underdown will be able to talk more about that. It could be that no one, through nobody's fault of their own, that's why we first had the coronavirus breakout in Barcelona. Maybe not.
They do make a bunch of sports gear.
I'm telling you, if you look at the first Olympic outfit that Kelme made, it was in Barcelona in 1992. I've been to Barcelona. I've looked at the sports gear there. Kelme is going to be just do Kelme 1992 Barcelona Olympic gear. You're going to find I'm right. And this is Juan Antonio Samaranch's thing. You see where it says, it says 1992 Summer Olympics? Go down. Keep going down. 1992 Summer Olympics.
Am I blind?
Keep going down. Right there. Fashion Police. Team Australia, Barcelona, 1992.
Look at those.
That's a bioweapon. That shirt right there, the Australians were wearing a bioweapon. Look at them. How is that not a bioweapon? Look at that's the Corona.
Now they're on lockdown.
That's Five Eyes. They wore the Corona. Now search for Kelme. Control F for Kelme.
Not in the article.
All right. Well, we'll come back to it. I thought somebody had told me about it when I was in Barcelona. I might be dreaming.
No, they definitely make the soccer gear and athletic gear. So
But
they're a prominent uniform manufacturer.
This discussion in Barcelona was to the point of they're really super proud of it. It's their national thing. And they make all the FIBA soccer stuff. And if you look at this whole takedown of Trump, it was all these Link University kids. It was all these Pope's spy school kids. And it was all with the FIBA people. We had this diplomatic guy to the Holy See. The whole team with Christopher Steele was all out of Link University in this the ambassador to Holy Seal, all protected by. Go ahead.
That's something at least for you.
I might have been told.
Kelme is a Spanish sports brand once designated as the official sponsor for the Spanish team in the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Games. It became the sponsor of Real Madrid, the biggest soccer team in the world, widely recognized as the best soccer team globally of that decade.
Do Kelme Wikipedia. I thought they were in Valencia. I could be wrong. Let's do about Kelme. Right there. Click about Kelme. Right there. Maybe I'm wrong. I can translate. Okay, there it's all in English.
From our creation in 1997, we have worked hard to improve.
1977.
77, we have worked hard to improve within the professional and amateur sports industry through innovation and a commitment towards R&D and I.
Did you see where it says we leave a mark? Read from there.
We leave a mark. Our past and our present are made up of big successes, such as official technical sponsorship of the Spanish Olympic team during the Barcelona 92 games, sponsoring Real Madrid CF between 94 and 98, sponsoring the Kelm cycling team, Kelme cycling team, one of the best Spanish teams in cycling history. We have shared victories with great champions such as Conchita Martinez won Wimbledon, or Jordi Villacampa's golden era in the pitch, not forgetting Fermin Cacho or international athlete Saad Auta. We have also been present in the best football league in the world, supporting clubs like Deportivo Alaves, Levante UD, Villarreal CF, AD Alcorcon, Malaga CF.
That's a good. So now international presence, and remember again, there's R&D is Fort Bragg. Why? Why is it the same place for the gain of function, Ralph Barrick? Go look at their look at North Carolina. And again, why
their manufacturing facility?
Their R&D
for
the actual fabric and the actual Velcro of the fabric. You can stay right on here. Okay. Just look for North Carolina. See, they're all over the place. Remember, all I need is for one guy to wear this. Every time I brush up against somebody, I spread it, right?
Especially when you're talking about having it kind of be, you can turn it off and on and stuff like that.
Do Kelme and North Carolina.
I'm sorry, I was reading. They have a biomechanics institute. And,
yeah. They got a couple of laboratories.
Kelme
and North. Well, just because they Kelme and North Dakota and North Carolina. I didn't go by there. Say and North Carolina instead of R&D. Say Kelme and North Carolina. Conover.
Kelme Americas.
Yeah, Conover, North Carolina.
That's not far from Charlotte.
Yeah.
Let me just put this on the screen at least. I'll find more.
And it could be just an importer. Articles of dissolution. You see that? Articles of dissolution.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. Interesting. All right. So maybe they are or are not related, but apparently
they make the North Carolina State soccer jerseys.
Yeah. I mean, if I didn't see the breakout. Okay, so let's go back to the breakouts, Andy. I mean, I looked up these things. I got criticized this morning for not looking into the two breakouts that preceded Green Spring.
So they're Next Gen and Kelme partnered. So Next Gen Athletic Gear. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're like kind of growing, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know much about them. But okay, so let's go back to my Twitter.
Okay.
And we'll go back and see.
You want to go to Twitter or your
Twitter? Yeah, that document. Okay, yeah, go back to that document.
Give me a second.
And I just want to show people I did the due diligence on this stuff. Okay. Look at the third breakout. Look at the third breakout. Go. If you go into the document, look at the third breakout. Veneto, Italy. 957 blood samples taken for cancer screening, collected from September the 19th to March 2020. 111 samples tested positive. This is a cancer study in Lombardy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only have I been to this region, we brought somebody here for 2 weeks from this region who speaks Italian, who was there during the breakout.
Still hasn't seen his kids.
Still hasn't seen his kids. Short of going there, which we can't do because we're not vaccinated, we researched the hell out of this.
How far is Pietro's home office from?
I don't know.
And
I thought Pietro was actually up there in Emilia Romagna. This is the Roman family. Emilia Romagna. If you look, this is all off record. Okay.
It can't be off.
This is off record. But
just stating it off record while you're on record.
well, this is off for everybody watching. This is off record. But there's supposed to be this sort of like Roman family, right? Of the papal states. Okay. Now, the papal states, Andy, if you want to bring up the papal states, were states that were, I don't know if they were promised to the Pope or the Pope had control because all of these.
This is what the Vatican's on, right?
Yeah. Look at the papal states. And they were promised that they would get land in exchange for fighting for the Pope. And see, you had 2 popes. You had a white Pope and a red Pope. You had the white Guelphs and the red Guelphs. You have the Ghibellines and you had the Guelphs and all this. And you've all read Machiavelli and so forth, right? So the papal states keep going down. During the Renaissance, papal territory expanded greatly, and the Pope became one of the most important secular rulers as the head of the church, right? The papal states covered most of Italy, Lazio, Marche, Umbria, Romagna, and portions of Emilia. Okay. Now, Emilio Romagno. Boy, John would be mad with my Italian accent.
So this is actual like church, like Catholic, Roman Catholic Church territory. Like not like, hey, we're partnered with Italy and we're partnered with Rome and doing like this is our stuff. Okay.
But as things change and there's wars and people lose stuff, there are people that still have this idea, especially in Emilia Romagna, this Italian family, right? And a lot of people say this is where the mafia gets their kind of reason for being, right? See where it says prisoner in the Vatican, you know, and all that is in these papal states. Now, if you look on that map, Andy, where the papal states are, okay, it's right across the length and breadth of Rome. Do a search, but if you do,
next one,
like go to thing. If you look at Emilia Romagna, you'll see it's right in the middle. There's a stretch that goes across Rome, but then there's this stretch to the west, and this is where this Aviano Air Force Base is. Okay, so it's
you want an actual map of Italy?
Well, no, that one's
states map.
That one's good right there because let me look at it real quick. Up there at 9 is Forti. That's not where Forti de Marmi is. I don't think. Forli. Okay, yeah, my eyes are bad. So look at
14's Ravenna.
Yeah.
4's Bologna.
Bologna's,
University of Bologna, where everyone goes.
See how close it is to Modena? Okay. That area is where the big breakout is. Now, if you want to go and look at Aviano Air Force Base, and we looked at this, there's 2 Air Force bases, but look at where Aviano Air Force Base is. See, a lot of these folks still identify as warriors of the Pope. There's an enclave within these papal states where they still think, and they still think, believe it or not, that bioweapons in ridding the people who aren't work for our Pope is just fine. Pestilence, a pox upon your house, a pox upon your family. You know, Capulets and all those, just fine, right? Look at where Aviano Air Force Base is, and Just say Aviano Air Force Base. Look at where it is. And it's right there where this breakout happens. And again, if you are securing and leaking using your PayPal spy kids, right? And leaking, you're right there. I went up and visited this place. This is the biggest base of NATO on the frontier of Bosnia-Herzegovina. This is where a lot of the airstrikes were for Libya and Syria, but not as many in Syria because Obama didn't cross the red line. But for Libya, most of the stuff happened out of Aviano. And again, look at the people who did this and look at Giuseppe Benassi. Got the other Benassi, which is Pietro Benassi. You got Antonio with the white sniffer. Why don't we play a little flight line here, Andy? No audio, but play a little flight line here at Aviano.
Oh, it's up on the screen.
All right, I'm going to take a break.
No audio?
You can play audio if you want. They probably won't get it.
Look at how much better this is, how much closer.
This jet should be painted blue for NATO. If you look closely, you can see the sprayer capsules right below. This is exciting for everyone. We'll be back. You ready?
Yeah. So my question is, Andy, this same group orchestrated the bombings in Kosovo, the bombings in Herzegovina, the bombings in Libya, all the spraying that would have been a part of that. Then they would have been the development of Camp Bondsteel, all the spraying there, right? Then they come to the same spy organization. Peter Strzok comes to the same spy organization in 2016 to do the dossier. Same group that was used in the FIBA in 2015. And what if Trump keeps winning in the polling? What if your polling data shows Hillary's losing?
You got to start coming up with a new plan.
An insurance policy,
Yeah.
right?
Especially when Joe Biden's a candidate you're putting in front of it.
Well, this was 2016 with
Yeah.
Hillary. What is your option? What is Peter Strzok's option? You can only go to the same spy group that you're already working with. and they can only go to the weapons and tools they've already used in warfare. You don't have a choice. You have to use the weapons you've already used in Libya, Syria, Ukraine, Sudan, Yemen. You don't have a choice. You can't all of a sudden in the middle of August 2016 go, you know what? We really need to work on coronavirus. That'll take Trump down. You don't get a chance. You have to go with something you've already used. Hey, we did SARS. We did MERS. We've got this new variant that looks promising. Let's lock down Trump with a SARS variant. Hey, what a great idea. On the unlikely event that when you're 40 years old, you die in a car accident. There you have it. That is, to me, that's why you end up with a breakout here in, Andy, go back to the chart. When is the breakout? September 2019. To me, this is like running a parallel simulation. I want to see this happening somewhere around me where I know I have people that I can trust and I have feedback while I'm running the simulation someplace else. And that's why we had such huge death in Italy at the same time. Why isn't anybody talking about this? We had all the cameras rolling and we were replaying deaths 3 months later, but why wasn't anybody talking about this in September 2019 when it was occurring? No, they took all the film and they replayed it 3 months later. Then we have Milan with the skin samples. Same thing. We have all the deaths in Milan, a little bit to the south now. Veneto, I thought was up a little bit more like near Modena. And then we have another place, right, in Brazil, which just happens to be another place where Virginia Benassi has shown her expertise, and Pietro, which is Zika. Interesting.
It's like, you're already on board. You're already on board. You're already on board. Let's just like use you guys because you guys know the drill, and then we'll get everyone else on board as we go.
And these are all University of Texas medical branch too.
Yeah.
And then finally, this last one,
Literally, like they held classes with South America, like wherever all the biosafety labs from South America came up in 2000.
University of Texas medical branch, Galveston.
Yeah.
For the Zika. It's sort of like the springboarding for Zika.
Yeah, that's one of the pretty much, if you have an outbreak, you get a biosafety level 4 lab. So that's how they like base it off. So if you have an outbreak, you go to University of Texas, probably the CDC first or whatever. Then they send you to Galveston. They teach you everything. And then all of a sudden you got a biosafety level 4 lab and you're part of the group and you're listening to Benassi in the next breakout.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And you get the adept framework and everything.
Yeah.
Get trained in it. Now, this last one, again, I produced files here that talk about these serum blood levels where we saw this breakout in Los Angeles.
This was all based off the Seattle flu study reporting, by the way. All these 39 evidence antibody, this was all done by the Seattle flu study.
The first 5? No,
the one from
the
Los
LA.
Angeles.
Yeah. The Seattle flu study, I think, is going to be another one that's a proof point. But again, here is people in Los Angeles getting it before supposedly Sonomish Man is the first case, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not looking good. How does that happen? And how many samples, how many cases do we have, Andy? 39?
There were 39 with evidence of antibodies were collected between December 13th and 16th from residents in California, Oregon, and Washington. 67 with evidence of antibodies were collected from the 30th to the 17th of January from Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So got a total of about 100 within a month spread out across the U.S. And the Seattle flu study, they set up these centers in the airports around the country after they did this Seattle flu study, and every state you see listed in this was one of the biometric centers they set up at the airport.
So all these measurements taken at the airport is what you're
Yep.
saying? All these measurements.
That's where they all were. They were like coming in from the airport. There was like an old couple that came in through Iowa, and then there was like some young people in San Francisco that came over. Yeah, there's I have to dig in my files to find these. It's going to take me a while, but yes.
Well, and I don't want to try to implicate Harry Harris for trying to cause a pandemic in the United States, but I do know that there was a cruise ship brought into. I mean, I know from personal knowledge.
There's a cruise ship.
There was a cruise ship brought into the port of Los Angeles that had all these sick people on it, and somehow they flew back from the cruise and all ended up in LAX.
Yep.
Now, what the hell, Harry Harris, are you thinking?
That was the same. Remember when it was the Ebola virus broke out? They like brought the person to like Iowa, and it's like, what are you bringing this person back to the United States for? Like, why are like how does that even make sense if we're trying to limit a pandemic? Why are they even?
They also
traveling?
brought one of them to Colombia too, so I remember that one well. But this one is, why are you bringing Harry Harris? Why are you bringing everybody from the cruise ship and flying them back in December to LAX, where they're going to cough and they can spray stuff into the system? And now get everybody traveling,
because it's a main travel hub.
Yeah. And why would you do that to a major travel hub?
Mm-hmm.
You know all about bioweapons. You ran the 7th Fleet.
You should be the one going, no.
You ran the program.
Like, no, terrible idea.
You ran the program that you know how bioweapons spread. You know that you would put a whole bunch of vectors into a major airport and then start spraying into the thing or whatever, or you just cough. So you wonder why this doesn't get any publicity. Why is it always Snohomish man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they needed a Lee Harvey Snohomish.
Yeah.
And they needed Lee Harvey Snohomish to be so far out. When was Lee Harvey Snohomish? I think he was like end of January, right?
Mm-hmm.
First case in the United States. They put Lee Harvey, and we still don't know the name of Lee Harvey Snohomish. Wouldn't it be good to know if he went through the port of Los Angeles? Why all the tag and trace for Little League kids trying to play Little League baseball right now? Where was your tag and trace back then? Where was your tag and trace? Lee Harvey Snohomish. And, you know,
it's hard to Google Lee Harvey.
Well, just put first corona U.S. patient. But Lee Harvey Snohomish, I don't think it's till the end of January. No offense, but I can tell you how corona works. The people who get it give it to people who don't have it, not the other way around. So you want to start with the first people who get it to do the root tracing, right? So it looks like some people have covered this, but just put Washington. I bet you if you do timeline of COVID-19 developments, it'll have the Lee Harvey Snohomish.
30.
See, January the 19th, Lee Harvey Snohomish. Now, why in the world would we hide his name? What's the advantage there? So that we could ask him, have you ever met Leonid Vindman? You ever been to the port of Tacoma?
On January 19th, 2020, a 35-year-old man presented to an urgent care clinic in Snohomish County, Washington, with a 4-day history of cough and subjective fever. On checking into the clinic, the patient put a mask in the waiting room. And after waiting approximately 20 minutes, he was taken into an examination room and underwent evaluation. He disclosed that he'd returned to Washington State on January 15th after traveling to visit family in Wuhan, China. The patient stated that he had seen a health alert from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention about the novel coronavirus outbreak in China. Because of his symptoms and recent travel, decided to see a healthcare provider.
Okay, so basically, we found somebody to fit the scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're going to make that Lee Harvey Sonoma. But they didn't do anything with all these cases all over the country. 12, 13 different states. I saw a lot of different states, Andy, not just up and down the I-5 corridor, Oregon and Washington, but I saw Michigan. And all these, like you said, the Seattle flu study was tagging and tracing and monitoring this. Right? And you're saying the Seattle flu study, right?
They base everything off that. Like they use all like they set
You're
up
saying
all
they
the,
had monitoring ports in
Oh,
all these
yeah.
different cities.
based off the Seattle flu study. They started setting up biomarker places and airports. I'll have to.
What good is the reporting that they've done? This is like saying, the 465th horse to leave the barn was a dapple gray mare.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to know which ranch hand left the gate open to fire him. I don't care about if the 450th horse they got out. I want to find the ranch hand that did this. I want to fire him. Oh, I think I want him stampeded over. But anyway, wow, just amazing. Andy, this report has been a wealth of information. Again, I hate to say it, but an Emmy goes to us for this because we're the only one who's reporting on it. Sorry, if you're the only one, we get the Emmy, Donnie. You don't get the Emmy for fake reporting. We get the Emmy for real reporting on what's really happening in Congress and what's really happening at the Foreign Ministry of China. You lose, we win the Emmy. Somebody write us in for the Emmy for real reporting over Donnie O'Sullivan.
This is literally going to get an Emmy to try to cover up the real reporting.
This is the cover-up Emmy.
Yeah.
Look at our report. Look at my reporting. Look at my reporting compared to what you just saw from the U.S. Congress, supported by classified information with people with top secret clearances versus the Donnie O'Sullivan completely fabrication.
They couldn't even sue us if I literally took that report and just put a George Webb and started selling it. They could not even sue us. We would just
They have to pay royalties.
They
have to pay royalties.
They should. Everyone that clicks on the article.
The key to this, Andy, is going to be, did they call for help? Did China call for help? When they saw that second virus, I think when they saw that first virus, nobody wants to say
they did call for help because in the report, people from China were letting like the Galveston group, I'll call them, they were letting them know that they were having like issues. This was in like 2000.
No, not the old issues, but after they put in the new lab,
No, this was after they put in the new lab and stuff. They were having, they didn't have enough support pretty much. There was not enough technicians working at the lab, even when they were down in biosafety.
Show me that.
Level.
Show me that.
Okay, I'll find that.
Because if that's true, then Virginia Benassi, again, if that's a real person, not just a placeholder mailbox for Giuseppe Benassi and Pietro Benassi, but Virginia Benassi would have been the person organizing the team to go to Wuhan to remediate the problem. That's pretty amazing. Along with the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston people who helped build the lab. Put it this way. I don't build a lot of things that are $1 billion. There's not a lot of $1 billion things out there that you can build. But a biosafety lab and this is one of the most state-of-the-art biosafety labs. And I think it's one of the last biosafety labs that's been built. I think the one in Africa may be a little bit newer. But
okay, so they do mention the 2004 stuff in the first paragraph, but if you go down to the second one, As discussed in our original report released last year in 2018, U.S. State Department officials sent cables to Washington, D.C., highlighting concerns with safety issues at the WIV. The cables reported that scientists at the WIV noted a serious shortage of appropriately trained technicians and investigators needed to safely operate this high containment laboratory. The cables also questioned the PRC's commitment to prioritizing important research for what the lab was designed. Thus, while the BSL-4 lab is ostensibly fully accredited, its utilization is limited by lack of access to specific organisms and by opaque government review and approval processes. As long as this situation continues, Beijing's commitment to prioritizing infectious disease control on the regional and international level, especially in relation to highly pathogenic viruses, remains in doubt. And then 1 year later, George Gao, he pretty much said there was going to be a disease outbreak if they don't fix things. And lo and behold, there's a disease outbreak. I can read his quote if you want me to.
Well, it says at the bottom, I'll just read, likewise, synthetic bat virus SARS like corona acquired an increasing capability to infect human cells through adding a furin cleavage site with the Paul Whelan girls, right? Thus modifying the genomes of animals, including humans, plants, and microbes, including pathogens, must be highly regulated. Well, that means gain of function research should be shut down, and you were the guys who took it off of the Erasmus labs. So 3 months later in 2019, now they're straight to hiring the biosafety person. Well, Gao was the guy at event 201.
This
right?
lady gets into the maintenance of the biosafety labs and how they're limited, and they don't, and China doesn't actually fully fund the maintenance part of these biosafety labs. So that's what that 3 months later, the Wang Jingxing, that's what she said. Like, they're not properly like disposing of everything and keeping up with everything.
Well, okay. So put it this way, Andy. If I'm writing reports about how you are deficient in 2018, I'm saying, hey, you got a great arm, but as a quarterback, but you tend to focus on your first two receivers. You don't really pick up number 3 and your number 4 like Brady does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got a better arm than Brady. Yeah, you're more accurate. Yeah, you roll right better. Yeah, you cut back left better.
You can't hit the 3 and 4. You can't go through your progressions.
And that's your problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm your coach and I'm giving you the rundown, I'm going to say, look, nobody picks up 3 and 4 like Brady does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's the GOAT and you're not, even though you got a better arm. Okay. And you're faster.
That's why I go, hey, George Webb, here's the info. Connect the dots.
There you go. But you see what I'm saying is I know a lot about your game. If I know that much about you in 2018 and you're on my team still, right? Yeah. I'm monitoring you if I have this much concern.
Oh, yeah.
You're in doubt. Hey, I'm expressing concern about how the operations are being run there.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a breakout in August of 2019 and enough to trigger the purchase of $150 million of an air filter system, and then another one on September 11th to trigger a $660 million complete renovation where you tear out all the old stuff and put in all new stuff.
Yeah.
Again, who am I going to go to?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of these things around there. You're going to go back to the people who helped build this thing, and they've had the most experience going around the world. Virginia Benassi's team has had the most experience going around the world building these things.
Yep.
You're going to go back to them and say, what should we get? What electrostatic air filters should we get? What, microporous membranes filters should we get, et cetera, et cetera.
If you're going to go to the WHO and use Virginia Benassi's email for all your R&D research, you're going to go through them for your supplies and all
and
that.
We're not guessing also. Here. She is on the team
Yes.
with the University of Texas medical branch that's making the original build.
Yeah.
And supposedly they took it into their own arms because they were afraid the Americans were too much, running the show.
Yeah.
and therefore the maintenance, there was problems.
Mhm.
So the person who would know the vulnerabilities would be Virginia Benassi or someone using her identity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we're pretty close here
Yeah,
to the smoking gun. Now, that's what I said in my reporting 18 months ago. So again, I think that we get the Emmy and Donnie gets the cover-up Emmy. I think that's what happens here. In the couple minutes we have left, right? Do we have a couple minutes left?
Mhm.
I wanted to go over what I submitted to the court.
You got your own.
Yeah,
things you're pulling up?
I'll switch over here. You sent me a StreamYard link, and I'll just cut over here real quick. I saw people, trillionaire trolls, trying to create, doubt. Can we trust this person or trust that person? You have to trust anybody. This is the U.S. Congress, folks. Do you trust the U.S.? I mean, there it is, black and white. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it's basically everything we said for 18 months. If anybody got a Trust Plus on my name today, it should be me after this.
McCaul has some pretty good credentials too. He's like bioterrorism expert from Texas and like worked with Homeland Security and stuff.
I wonder if
also.
he's from Galveston.
You got
Wouldn't that be something? Oh my God.
Well, he covers the area from his territory is the area from Houston to Austin, I believe. So he has a pretty populated area in Texas.
That's a lot of different congressional seats. But anyway, I just want to show you the love mail that CNN got today, and the court, our court got. But this is the response here to CNN, and it's very short and sweet. Okay, they're trying to say by having these discussions with Poppy Harlow and Jim Sciutto and Brian Seltzer, that's not somehow reiterating the original charge that somehow I wished ill on the subject on the State Department diplomatic services person. No, I had 3 or 4 sources that pointed toward the U.S. State Department Armed Diplomatic Security Service person, including the Chinese Foreign Ministry and including 3 sources at Fort Belvoir. So I had full reason to believe that this was an important person in the story in an official capacity working directly for the head of NATO. If not working for the direct head of NATO, at least somebody very important at the at Fort Belvoir. Okay. No malice, no nothing. It's presented as a patient, as a victim. Okay. Now, to take that story straight ahead, Washington, D.C., the foreign minister said this type of story, and turn it into a wild-eyed guy who just had it in for somebody who lived in Virginia because they wanted blood, right? And somehow led a vigilante band to try to go kill this person at her house. That's complete fabrication. I never published this person's address. CNN's the one who took the cameras and filmed where she lived. Okay. Never wished ill on this person ever. Right. CNN's the one who took U.S. State Department, ex-U.S. State Department people issuing death threats from a Special Forces Navy training base in Norfolk, Virginia. I presented to him, which wasn't really a big part of my story. I didn't present it online, but he did get that story. He's the one who turned that into, hey, I got a great idea. Let's flip the story on its head. Let's make it 180 degrees different. Let's take the hero in this and make him the villain. Quitcho changeo. We'll take the hero in the story. We'll make him the villain. We don't want him to be the hero. CNN wants to be the hero. We want to get all the money from the drug companies for all our advertising. We'll take the hero, make him a villain. Exactly what happened 4 years earlier. Okay. My reporting turned out to be right. The Ibrahim gang was arrested in the United States. They were threatening to blow up ports. They had done it before in India. So that is the case here. And now you're going to see what they're trying to say is, well, the original tort was more than a year ago. And all the additional discussions and bringing it up with Poppy Harlow and bringing it up with Brian Seltzer and bringing it up with Jim Sciutto and bringing it up in social media, that's not republishing. And we're only responsible for the original tort, not the compounding and not the compounding of the irreparable harm. That's their big argument. Okay. So right off the bat, the defendant continues to make continued promotion, discussion, and endorsement of these tortious defamation, right? They continue to say that as we continue to promote and discuss and so forth, this doesn't constitute republication. So the whole matter here is this republication or not? Okay, it's republication. Republishing endorsements of a news story is republishing the story. I say, 12 years ago, we had a sale on Cadillacs. But this weekend and this week only, we're going to have the same kind of sale we had 12 years ago. That's republishing. Okay. And they did right before the election. They republished, and right before January 6th, 60 Minutes republished. Again, trying to take people who are independent citizen journalists and make them look like they're trying to lead a lynch mob, which is completely false. So CNN and Donnie O'Sullivan continue to republish this tortious libel, per se tortious libel, meaning I don't have to quote anything, inestimably refreshing and compounding the original irreparable harm done. There it is. I'm not interested in arcane corner case law that doesn't apply here. There's Donnie O'Sullivan right there in July 27 of 2021 republishing. That's last month. For all those at CNN who don't have a calendar, that's last month, folks. And you're compounding it by not issuing an apology now, by not settling now. You're compounding it as you go to the Emmys. Okay. Every day that goes by and you keep not objecting and you don't go to the Emmys and go, oh, by the way, we took this story, this hero story, and we made the guy out to be the villain. We didn't tell you this, but the guy had gotten a lot of death threats, and Donnie thought it would juice the story if we turned the death threats around and made it so that he was threatening the person he was reporting on. It's a big lie. Okay. But can you just pull us out of that category? That would be what a smart cookie would do right about now. They'd say, hey, can you pull us out of that? And it wasn't really good reporting. It was actually Bass Ackwards reporting. And we're going to
delete those tweets, Donnie.
Yeah, just pull us out of this thing. Get us out of this nightmare.
Take the 60 Minutes off YouTube.
Get us out of this nightmare. That's what if they were smart, they would do that. But they're obviously not doing that. Here's Donnie talking about Donnie's delight. Here's an Irish Examiner talking about Donnie's delight. They're reveling in this.
He's probably still picking out his suit.
Oh yeah, CNN is clearly going beyond simple republication. When you celebrate something, you're saying this is our crowning achievement. This is their one. This is their one Emmy nomination for news. This is their one Emmy nomination for news. So you want to talk about compounding the irreparable harm. Unbelievable. Donnie's delight. The Irish Examiner talks about Donnie's delight. So that knocks down the original claim. The original thing was statute of limitations. And then they found out about the October series of discussions with Poppy Harlow and all the other, a couple of other news anchors. So they dropped that and then they went to republishing. Well, that didn't work either, obviously, because, advertising and promoting and endorsing is republishing, right? And then secondly, the plaintiff clearly defends claims of defamation and republication. They said, you didn't defend your claim. Defend your claim means proving your case, right? My response is short and simple. Short of providing everyone a seat, and I should have said everyone in the jury, a seat at the 2019 Emmy Awards, the plaintiff cannot be asked to provide more proof of republication and CNN's endorsement of the plaintiff's claim. The plaintiff has made it obvious in social media, okay? So the plaintiff has made it plain as day. The only way I could prove it anymore is put the jury into the actual Emmy Awards. Clearly, CNN and revels in the irreparable harm they've caused the plaintiff, despite the U.S. Congress, what you just saw, now agreeing with much of the original reporting George Webb presented, reporting an earlier outbreak of coronavirus and the December and November 19 dates that CNN was providing. Remember, the original attack on me was conspiracy theory to talk about an October breakout. It was conspiracy theory to talk about the American soldiers bringing it. It was an impossibility scientifically. Now the U.S. Congress is saying, no, it may be even earlier than that in September. There very well could have been a mercy mission or a State Department mission to fly in on September 11th to recommend an emergency remediation. That I very well could have been right, exactly right, that person and that team was inoculated before being sent on that mission. So the ME promotion by CNN deformations caused irreparable harm are only the latest in a continuing stream of panel discussions on CNN with Jim Sciutto, Brian Seltzer, and Poppy Harlow. They're engaged in this, a couple of other CNN anchors, and that makes their communications discoverable as well. Each discussion constituting a republication and compounding of the original irreparable harm. Then finally, they say that, well, if you can't agree to that, Judge, we want to take all of Donnie Sullivan's statements and throw them away, made before June 25th, because we played games with Service so long with the CT Corporation, with changing the name and changing a letter and all these games, which were either contempt of court or they were obstruction of justice or both. I asked a couple of different lawyers I know, what do you think it is, obstruction of justice or contempt of court, the way they avoid service with this CT Shadow Corporation? They said, kind of sounds like both. Kind of sounds like both obstruction of justice and contempt, because they've been warned. Once you've been warned you're obstructing justice, then you're having contempt. So they want to blame me for delaying things, for their obstruction of justice and their contempt. And they want to bar those original statements. They just want to now say, well, we did make the statements after now. We did get a calendar out. And we only want to say what the endorsements and discussions were about, but we don't want the original statements being referenced to be included. Well, you can't do that. So obviously CNN feels quite content, is my response, that with their reporting that a DC reporter receiving death threats from an ex-U.S. State Department employee from a Navy Special Forces training base should be turned into a fictitious story about the plaintiff wishing harm on armed diplomatic security services personnel. The U.S. State Department armed diplomatic services personnel was sourced 3 different ways as being important to the story and was cast in the light of being a potential patient zero, a victim. CNN has made it abundantly clear that they revel and celebrate in causing this unthinkable, irreparable harm on a continual basis for the plaintiff and his family. Absolutely no malice or bias was presented in the plaintiff's reporting of the original story on the outbreak of coronavirus in Wuhan. And as you just saw, all the evidence points to, the Congress is on my side, not CNN's. Conclusion: a few times in history of jurisprudence does a defendant rely on the commission of criminal behavior as a protection for torts resulting in irreparable harm, but this appears to be one of those times. This is sort of like I ran the car over your prized geraniums and destroyed, or your golf course and your championship 18-hole green right before the Masters, right? And so you couldn't play the Masters and you lost out on $1 billion of revenue. But the reason I did that is I was avoiding the police. They were chasing me because I robbed a bank. I was committing a felony. Therefore, I shouldn't be responsible for running my car over all your greens and destroying all your greens before the Masters. Literally, that's CNN's defense. The commission of 2 felonies was why we should be absolved for the commission of a tort that caused irreparable harm. And I'll just tell you what the 2 crimes are. CNN hides behind the criminal acts of misrepresentation, completely reversing a story, making the hero a villain, and in a despicable way, saying I somehow wished harm on the Benassis, including making me out to be someone who's inspiring murder. Despicable. Okay. And incitement, because people were incited to then turn violence on me when they already knew I was the subject of death threats. But additional people now came forward with death threats because they thought they needed to protect the Benassis. So this false misrepresentation had put out there. So now people were incited.
They're attacking you now instead of.
And that could have been predicted. That type of incitement, they could have predicted that I would have those kind of additional death threats, and they happened. And YouTube has record of them. Now, YouTube said they've destroyed all those, right? But we're going to get to the bottom of that when we get to discovery. You cannot say the reason I ran over all your golf greens and destroyed your Masters televised event was because I was committing a robbery at the time and I was trying to avoid the police. So it's not my fault. That doesn't work. I was inciting violence and I was misrepresenting so we could get great ratings and make a lot of money and I could make Jeff Zucker happy. Therefore, I shouldn't have to worry about my reporting being accurate. It doesn't wash, especially when you know your reporting is false and grossly false. So that information can only be okay. And then the final thing is they want to put the burden of proof on me on how the conspiracy was constructed. You didn't outline well enough in your complaint how the conspiracy was constructed. Because remember, I'm not responsible, right? I can't quote things. I don't know how they came up with this story, right? With all the different people threatening the Benassis and so forth. I have no idea how they came up with this stuff. I don't know where, everything was blurred out. I have no idea who to go to. I would love to go to the YouTube people that said this and do follow up, but they blurred it all out. So I have no idea.
They have blocked it all from the internet now.
Have they?
So there's so much stuff that you can't find anymore. And
but they blurred the stuff out. So I had no idea. I couldn't go back to see how the conspiracy was constructed. Okay. Plus YouTube's taken us down 18 times. So my point to the judge.
You're saying you can't even find your video.
Well, no, in their video, they blocked out the people who supposedly made the threats. So I did not have a chance to go find out who those people were to see if they were fake threats or real threats.
I get you.
Right. So they want me to go back and reconstruct their conspiracy and their false reporting. I have no idea what they were thinking. Donnie says he has chaos in his mind. First question, Donnie O'Sullivan, you a reporter for CNN? Is this your article? Yes, it is. Do you see the first sentence in the article? Yes, it does. What does the title say? At times, there's chaos in my mind. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is the person that CNN is relying on and standing behind at the Emmys.
They're going to claim he's mentally ill and you're going to get nothing now.
But that's the point. You're sponsoring him to the Emmys. And he's got that article out there saying there was chaos in my mind. When is there chaos in your mind? How would you know when there's chaos in your mind and if there wasn't chaos in your mind if you knew sometimes there was chaos in your mind? Right? So this is a huge burden to put on the plaintiff. How do I know when there's chaos in Donnie's mind? How do I know what they talked about and said, well, why don't we take the death threats from Ken Hale that came from the State Department and make it sound like he wanted bad to happen to the U.S. State Department Armed Diplomatic Services people? That's a great idea, Donnie. Or maybe it was Jim Sciutto that said that. Or maybe Poppy Harlow came up with that. Or maybe somebody else, Wolf Blitzer. Or so I don't know who did it. We need to discover that. Don't put that burden on me to find out how they came up with their wacky conspiracy. We need to find that out through discovery. So I basically say that information only can be, the defendant tries to shift the burden of proof to the plaintiff for a complete description of how the misrepresentation and incitement was concocted. I have no idea how they concocted this. That information only can be found through discovery. The plaintiff cannot be expected to know all the machinations going on inside CNN that produced the misrepresentation.
That is the worst signature I've ever seen.
There you go. Well,
Your signatures on the books look better than that, George.
So anyway, it's obviously I moved there for this motion to dismiss. The fact that we're on, I've had so many people say, well, you're not going to survive. They're going to dismiss it. Well, I don't think they did. I think if you have Pacer, you can go in there and look at it. And we're still in there punching. So there you go. So that's it for today. Andy, you want to play us out on some kind of bombing campaign in Aviano? Could we do?
Sorry, I got to do my plugs first.
Oh yeah, you go ahead and do your plugs.
Got to do my plugs first.
Andy gets all the money from the books, by the way.
I don't
That Neighborhood News gets the. Put it this way.
I just buy ink.
Well, and I buy paper and I buy ink and I buy covers, but all the money goes to Neighborhood News.
It does.
That's the key. I'm that's where the money goes.
We're trying to.
Not my account. Not my account.
We're battling the deep state, and they have deep pockets. So every dime we get is used to going towards the battle.
And when we get money from people who contribute, it goes to one of three things: paper, ink, or covers,
yep.
Or postage, or postage.
So we have Research Roadshow, just to give
or sometimes travel. We'll bring a Tommy Kerrigan.
Oh yeah,
we'll bring a young up and coming journalist.
Yep.
And put a lot of effort into raising the profile of young up and coming journalists. And we hope they go out and do great things. They can go out and choose to report on the DynCorp tail numbers for Jeff Epstein, or they don't have to do the DynCorp tail numbers for Jeff Epstein, the helicopters or the airplanes. It doesn't matter. We can only, try to influence everybody as best they can and hope they report Jeff Epstein's DynCorp tail numbers.
Here's the new book. Coronavirus, None Dare Call It DARPA. George Webb breaks down pretty much everything you've been listening to him here for the past hour.
2 hours.
2 hours. So, buy the book, support citizen journalism, and support the battle against the deep state. Blackberries matter. Can they see that? I got to make you full screen. Here, I'm on a smoothie kick now because I'm getting into shape and working out now. So I make a protein shake every morning. So Aaron bought me some frozen blackberries, and there you have it.
Blackberries matter.
Blackberries matter. Well, now that I got my plugs in, I just want to let everyone know that George Webb and McDuff are reunited once again tonight on McDuff Lives, his main channel. So if you are sitting at home tonight around 8:00, tune in to George and John just breaking down the coronavirus even more. And I'm sure John could give you some lawyer insights to your case that you.
I don't ever talk law with him. That way, he's not.
That is true. He does.
He's
say
not
that.
bound by the court in any way.
Okay,
so
that's a good point.
You don't want to have the court assign a lawyer.
I'm speaking out of turn then. Well, here we go. Do you have any last comments besides play it out?
I'd say play out a bombing campaign from Aviano on Libya. Do look up for a bombing campaign. It's going to be the same guys that were with Hillary Clinton in the State Department for the bombing campaign in Libya and the spraying campaign in Libya that did the bioweapons on Trump. It's going to be the same people.
And have we?
Doesn't that stand to reason?
Yeah.
It's not going to be a different conspiracy. It's going to be the same. Now, admittedly, they could couch it and say, well, we did a thing called Dark Winter, and we have to do an exercise that seems real for people to really take it seriously. So let's call it Dark Winter. And it's not really a takedown of Trump. It's Dark Winter. It's a bio exercise. However you want to couch it, it's an insurance policy, because the first set of spy kids trying to assign them to Trump didn't take. It didn't wash. That's just the bottom line. It's the same group of people.
Quick question. What's Rayo Abbas and Erickson's relationship, if they have any?
I don't know. I don't know if Rayo Abbas changed the air filters at Ericsson or not. I just find it interesting that somebody who's working in the U.S. Congress for so long, such a good friend of Imran Awan, who's such a good friend of the Clintons and such a good friend of Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC and Nancy Pelosi, and says he can take down Obama with the snap of a finger. I just find it very interesting that he has a sideline business, HVAC, and he's changing the filters every 2 weeks over at the sprayer house at Fort Belvoir. That's a little too close. I mean, I can see him changing the air filter around his house, but when it's involved in a national security case,
Mm-hmm.
the house is the subject of FBI investigation. It's a national security case. Seems like they're covering up what actually happened at the sprayer house to me.
Yeah.
It's called the sprayer house for a reason. They chose a house on the sprayer house road. They had a good laugh about this.
And I'll call it upon fellow Ospreys. I'm going to be doing some research trying to figure out who fulfilled those government contracts for the WIV in Wuhan, the maintenance contracts and such. If you guys can help me with that type of info, send me anything you have at neighborhoodnewsstudio@gmail.com.
Yeah, sure. Andy, what neighborhood news studio
at gmail.com.
Yeah. Why do they need, this is the Seth Rich question, why do you need to seize all the phones and laptops if it's a street murder? Why do you need Freytag low light cameras, the American Innovations cameras? Why do you need an Oconus Lure, the beautiful black woman, Jaquaya, and Jaquaya? Why do we need all that? Right? If this is just Imran extorting money for a house mortgage, why do I need that? If he says he owns it and he rents it, it's a fairly minor problem. Why does it need to be at the house of the people that are doing GSA.gov, where all the bids for the DOD are coming in? Why does it need to be at that house? Why does the Oconus Lure need to be at that house? Why does Scott Mormon, the guy who's training the Saudi pilots at the American Air University, why does he have to be at that house? Why does it all have to be at that house? Why at the other house does it have to be a NCIS investigation and an FBI investigation to get, if it's just a car radio, like Luke Rosiak says it is, if it's just a car radio, then why do we need an FBI investigation? Why do we need an NCIS? Why do we need a Fairfax County Sheriff investigation? Why do we need to then take it to an evidence, a phone booth at the Capitol, and then have the Capitol Police seize it and then put it in an evidence locker for nevermore? Seems like a lot of trouble for a car radio. Same set of logic. Why all the trouble with Rayo Abbas? If it's not for testing bioweapons for unsuspecting veterans and unsuspecting nurses and unsuspecting personnel who work there, unsuspecting soldiers. Seems like a lot of trouble to go to if you're just trying to, capture, slap somebody's wrist for using congressional funds for renting houses rather than living in them. It's like a lot of trouble. Anyway, Andy, can we play it out with bombing campaign from Aviano to Libya? NATO bombing campaign. Benghazi. Yeah, to Benghazi. Makes sense you'd want to blow up Benghazi if you'd used a lot of bioweapons there. It makes sense you'd want to have continuous turmoil from the day that the war ended so nobody could go in there and take samples, doesn't it?
What is this, a video or something you're looking for?
There's going to be hundreds of videos. Yeah, Odyssey Dawn, Operation Protector. Go up. Isn't it interesting how Imran Awan had a company called, not Odyssey Dawn, but what was it called?
A video?
Oh, video unavailable.
Unavailable. I can show the screen though.
Well, it's only going to be fun if you do video. Do a video search. Won't have Aviano necessarily, but and Imran has a company called New Dawn Corporation. See, Ellsworth is in Washington.
Not a good one to play.
Yeah, Ellsworth. Oh, Ellsworth is in Nebraska. I don't know. Can't. Just put in Aviano.
I think Ellsworth was sending these bombers overseas.
That's a
too.
B1 though. But I'm just Aviano. No, you leave everything else. Just put NATO bombing Aviano. Yeah, don't put Odyssey Dawn. Just put NATO bombing. NATO bombing Aviano. Aviano, Libya. I know that's where most of the tonnage came from. Just look at all the people that would be involved. Go ahead.
This used to be one of many large weapons dumps set up under the old regime. Placed in a Tripoli suburb called Ain Zara, it was targeted by a NATO airstrike. NATO dropped leaflets like this one as a warning informing Gaddafi forces to put down their weapons, stop fighting, and leave the area. Civilians generally understood these as an indication that the area was going to be targeted, especially with a military compound in the area.
We were expecting NATO to strike this location.
Wait a second. So NATO drops flyers like from a plane and just,
Before.
hey, you got 3 days to get out, and here's the strike. Okay.
Yeah, this is to explain.
Wouldn't that mean all the terrorists are going after? No, they're going to airstrike then.
Yeah, supposedly. But see,
Came and collected the
Like,
warning
let's
leaflets.
waste money on weapons.
So we didn't know the exact night of the strike.
Nadia explains that when the strike finally did come, it wasn't heavy-handed, which brought appreciation for the way it was carried out.
The first strike gave a warning to the
DJ
residents,
Nadia.
so automatically they left their houses.
I know it's not.
this is the NATO
As a
channel.
result,
Let's get off
there
the
were
NATO
no
channel.
accidents.
I love the way NATO carried out the bombing strike. They were so wonderful. They were so kind.
That was absolutely
It wasn't near
ridiculous.
any of my children. It was so good. I love the way NATO does this.
I can't believe it was much appreciated.
We'll check in with what's happening in Libya right now, because a mistake in Libya, NATO
presented the Libyans with a chance to put their case in a way that
This
exceeded
mic
their
gets
wildest
taken
propaganda.
down.
Forget
If I
it.
play the audio.
Forget it. All right. Sorry.
No, if I play the audio.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
These are the airstrikes on Libya. The damage. These guys weren't so happy with the way this was carried out.
I'm just going to say that the people who did that, okay, are the same ones that did Kosovo, same ones who did Bosnia, Aviano. And I'm not saying that, Gaddafi wasn't being, hey, I don't want to do, I'm going to do the dinar. I'm going to get off the American dollar. I'm going to just disable create a imbalance in the oil business, disequilibrium in the oil market. I'm not saying he didn't do that. He did. But, the bombing as the response is, equally heavy-handed, forceful. And again, it's his country, not our country.
This guy's saying Sarkozy and Obama
Sarkozy
are legally and morally responsible.
Yeah, and I think Obama, to be fair here, it's his first rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary Clinton's been through this, working in the West Wing through Bosnia and through Kosovo. So for her, she couldn't get, the bombs dropping quick enough. But Obama, it's his first rodeo, and he said yes, but he said no to the second rodeo in Syria. And I think to his credit, he said no to the second rodeo. So we'll leave it right there. Andy, you want to play us out with our great music that we have?
Yes, sir. It's great to be back, George.
Great to be back.